And I think you can put up to 3 options. Awesome. Oh, there's still more coming in. Okay, so we've got the children, Nana Bush, the wolf, the pebbles, and the butterflies. Yeah, those are some awesome different characters that the students could act out. So those are just the resources where I found this activity, but to go more in depth with the drama activity, so you could do it as a class first, read the story orally, maybe 2 or 3 times, have the students state the different animals or different characters, and then you could go through with the class different actions and different ways that these characters will move. For example, how does a wolf walk on all 4s? Is it slow? How does a butterfly, is it a big butterfly or just a little butterfly? Like, how can you move your body? And then you could split the students into different groups and they could act out the story by being the different animals. They could do a stop motion of all the different parts, perhaps when they're by the river drinking the water, or in a circle sleeping with a wolf howling at the moon. So there's lots of different ways you could do this drama activity. And you can do this with a lot of these short stories as well. So now moving on to the art activity. So this is a visual arts, this covers the visual arts curriculum. And I found this activity posted on the OISE website from the University of Toronto. I'm just gonna go to the next slide. So for this lesson, you use the Ojibwe artist Norval Morisseau, and he was born in the early 1930s on the Sandy Point Lake Reserve north of Thunder Bay in Ontario. And he uses an Eastern woodland style using the X-ray technique. And this, you can see kind of in this little guy here, how the X-ray technique uses the outline of the animal, but also uses the energy within the animal or the person. And I'm giving you this history of the artist because, as you want to do with your students, you want to make sure that you have the history of the person that you're teaching about if you're going to use their work. So students, for this activity, students will paint a storyboard of the story of the butterflies. You could do this in 2 different ways, depending on student level and what you want to do with the activity. So you could have individually, you could have students paint more of a storyboard and the different parts of the story in painting more like the longer one that I'm pointing to here. Or you could have the students who were in their drama groups paint a character from the book. So the butterfly or the wolf or the child, or even Nana Bozo. more like this. So the materials that you would need is heavy cardboard paper and thick water-based paint. It says to use acrylic, but you know how it is in schools. You got to use what you can get. So you could use any type of paint, tempera, water paint, pencil crayons if you have to, or crayons to fill it in, paintbrushes and water. It's important to have examples of Morisot's art up, and he has his own website that show a lot of paintings, and then provide photos of the animals so that the students can reference. And then how you could teach this lesson, like I said, make sure to discuss who Norval Morisot is, his history and his techniques, where he's from, why he might paint bears, and that's because he's from, he's Anishinaabe, or sorry, he's Ojibwe, and there are bears in Northern Ontario, so kind of how his location and his history reflect his art. And then discuss, then the students can choose their painting, what they're going to do, kind of brainstorm if they're going to do the butterfly, a wolf, or if you're going to do like older grades, do the whole story. What are the parts that they're going to include in the story? And then with a pencil, they're going to outline the subject. So outline like this, you would do the bear. And for this part, you could do, if you want to do younger grades, you can do a step-by-step. You could have students trace an animal, or they can just eyeball it, and it all depends on their skill level and the grade that they're in. And then once you do, the students do the outline of the animal, then they can do the interior. And in the interior, it's important that the students think about the energy and the emotion inside the animal and what they're feeling. And that's like these little lines in here. And then you can take a permanent marker or a black pencil crayon or black paint and outline the darkness, the outline and the sketch that you just did. And then you move on to the color, and that's when you let the imagination take over, and they can use whatever color they think that animal is feeling, and they get to color it in. And like I said, if you don't have paint, you can just use pencil crayons. So that activity can also, you could tie it in with the drama activity, where the students could paint their animal that they're acting out and then use it like as a mask or as the action figure as they're doing the drama lesson. And then moving on to the music activity. So this is the final activity I'll talk about. So for this, it's where they're going to be making noises and drumming to the story, just to really bring the story to life. I think the best way to do this is to bring in an elder to teach the students about the importance of drumming, how to drum, the history of drumming, and possibly even making their own drum. But for this, it's important to bring in an elder. As like myself, I don't have that knowledge to properly cover everything, and that should be something that an elder would pass on. And then once the students know the importance and the history, then I feel like you could move on to adding drums to the story. And if you don't have the resources for that, you could just use any type of music. So for when, maybe like shakers for when the butterflies go, or a tambourine or something when the wolves are doing some, or Nana Bush shows up. And so the music will go to the dynamics of the story. So you could play loudly or softly, or to the rhythm if you want to go fast or slow, depending on the animal or the part of the story, whatever the student feels when they hear the story is the music that they're going to play. So we're going to do a couple Kahoot questions just to finish off the presentation. We're almost there. So there's going to be 4 options. It's going to be loud and slow, loud and fast, slow and fast, no, quiet and fast, and quiet and slow. And then I'm going to give you a little like example part of the story, and then you can choose which type of music you would play. There is only one right answer, but technically all of them can be right. It's how you're interpreting the story. It's just with Kahoot, I could only choose one right answer, kind of like on Instagram, the polls. So here we go. So how would you drum when the children were sleeping, surrounded peacefully by the wolves? Would you go loud and slow, quiet, slow, loud, fast, quiet and fast? You all had the same idea that I thought. So yeah, I thought it would be quiet and slow. There's two more that we're gonna do. So how would you drum when Nana Bush, the trickster, shows up? Yeah, so we've got one quiet and fast, which would be true because he's sneaking up, and then loud and slow, because he's like a trickster. He could be loud but like slowly sneaking. So they're it's all up to your interpretation, but those are great options. And then this last one, I think you can choose two. Yeah. So how would you drum when the butterflies are released and the children follow? So yeah, loud and fast and quiet and fast. Those are great answers. Okay, so we have made it to the end. So some things to take away from the conference is cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation, and how to appreciate Indigenous culture correctly, and how to incorporate Indigenous pedagogy in the classroom using some the proper techniques and the protocols that the arts, that art video that I showed you talked about, and then integrating Indigenous storytelling in the classroom using art, and 3 activities using a short story, Indigenous short story. And then